your screen? Because
It
sometimes it's
does.
a little okay, perfect. Let me just post on Instagram and give it a couple of minutes so people can come in. We're live. Hello, everyone. When you come in, say hi. We are here with Kennedy Ryan talking about the re-release of Long Shot. So when you pop in, say hi, and throughout it, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment box. And yeah, how are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. Like I was just telling you, I'm in New York, so I'm in a hotel. Forgive the like bad lighting and the bed in the background, but I'm
It's
good.
nice. My hotel rooms don't look like that, so it looks great. It looks great, honestly. Here, let me. Sorry, I'm finishing posting this on my story. I
Oh,
always do
no
this
problem.
like mid
Yeah.
thing and let people know that we're live. I'm super excited for this chat. I've been a big fan of Kennedy Ryan for the longest time now, so I'm
Oh,
super excited
wow.
to sit
Thank
down and talk to
you.
you.
Thank
I like
you.
haven't let the nerves sit in because I was like so nervous and I was like, just turn it off. We have a live to do.
Nerves? Why would you
It
be
makes me
nervous?
nervous. I don't know why. Probably because I'm just been reading you for years, but I'm super
Oh
excited.
my gosh. No need for nerves. Absolutely not. Not with me.
Okay. I'm glad. All of my booktube friends that like have met you in the past are always talking about your hugs and how you have like the most amazing hugs ever.
Oh,
Like who was it? I think it
I'm a
was
hugger for sure.
Ava. Yeah, my friend Ava and Jess from Peace of the Book. They're talking about your hugs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to have one of your hugs.
Yeah.
We have the
Did you say
best
Jess
ever.
from Peace of Love Books?
Yes, love
Yes,
her.
I love Jess. Love her so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's get started into the questions. So, we are here celebrating the re release of Long Shot. I read Long Shot back in, I want to say 2020, and I am somebody who goes into my books very blind. I
Oh,
had no idea.
oh my God.
But it took me.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I genuinely, that's just what I do. Even though I know that sometimes kicks me in the butt, this one I can say it was a good thing that I went into it blind. I just enjoyed my time with it so thoroughly, and yeah, it's re-released, which is super exciting. So, for the people who don't know what a re-release is, do you think that you can kind of explain why that's good for you, why that's good for readers, and what exactly that means?
Yeah. Well, Long Shot was originally like I wrote Long Shot like 5 years ago, and I am what's called a hybrid writer. So that means I publish indie. I'm a self-published author, but then I also publish traditionally. So I kind of do both. So Long Shot and the entire Hoop series, there's 3 books in the series: Long Shot, Block Shot, Hook Shot. All 3 books were originally self-published. And
Mm-hmm.
then Bloom Books, and Bloom is a traditional publisher that's really been like sweeping through and like scooping up all these indie authors and republishing their work traditionally. And so Long Shot, they earlier this year they republished The Kingmaker for Me and The Rebel King, which were both originally self-published. And now they're republishing Long Shot here in August, Block Shot in September, and Hook Shot in October. And what that basically means is for this for the Hoop series and for Long Shot, the ebook is still in KU, which I love. I love that readers can still access the story through Kindle Unlimited. But the paperback Bloom is responsible for that. And the real advantage is mass distribution. When you're self-published, I think with the rise of TikTok and how paperback sales have really increased because the TikTok demographic loves paperbacks.
Right.
See indie authors more in stores than you ever have before, but it's still not mass distribution. So now my books, you would never see an indie book of mine in an airport. You still won't see self-published books in airports, or
Right.
in Target or in Walmart. Like those like retailers, they're really only dealing with traditional publishers. And so that's really like one of the big benefits is now my books and my other traditionally books. Like, I have a book called Before I Let Go. Of course, Before I Let Go is everywhere. It's in airports, in Targets, Costco's, all over. And so this, with this Bloom deal, it gets some of my self-published books, formerly self-published books, those same kind of opportunities. So now I'm walking through airports and I always see, I just saw Long Shot for the first time in an airport in New York. And I've seen it in Target and Walmart, and it's really cool. And it really just gets it out to a broader kind of swath of readers,
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
really the big advantage, is reaching new audiences and having that mass distribution through retailers. So I'm really
Love
excited about it.
I love that because especially Before I Let Go was published traditionally, right? Uh-oh.
Yes, that
Okay.
it's started publishing traditionally. It was
Okay.
never self-published. Yeah.
Yes, because I have like aunts and like people in my family. I'm like, read Before I Let Go. The audiobook was on like in our library, and I was like, read this.
Yeah.
And I know that they wouldn't be able, they're not like huge readers like that to like just have Kindle Unlimited. So it's
Yeah.
really cool that you're doing this and that we have this opportunity to like reach other audiences, and people who
Yeah.
love to read as well can just like push out our favorite authors. Like, oh my gosh, it was just published this way. Go and pick it up at Target or wherever.
Right.
That's
Right.
really
And I love it. Most of my books are most of my books are on audio, and most of them are in the library, because I'm a huge audiophile. Like, that's how I consume books, is through audio. And I use Libby, I use Hoopla. Like, I'm really big on libraries. So I love the fact that most of my books are available through libraries.
I love that. Hi, Reagan. Welcome in. Anybody else who is here, say hello. Oh, there we go. I'm glad you're here. Okay, next question. Can you please give us a quick rundown of the tropes of the Hoop series at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that for Long Shot, which of course is the one that just re-released, I am not a trope-led author. Like, sometimes people are like, okay, these are the tropes, like it's single
Right.
dad, and a lot of times the tropes that are really popular are kind of what are leading authors to write certain books,
Right.
because what's popular right now. I don't really pay attention to tropes
Okay.
until I've already written the book. Like, I know the story
Right.
that I'm going to write, and then I have to go back and like
Yeah,
tease. Okay, what are the tropes? What are
exactly.
those handles for readers? So, for Long Shot, and just I want to preface any discussion of this book by please check content warnings. It is a survivor story. Long Shot is a survivor story with a graphic depiction of intimate partner abuse. And so I always kind of put that at the top of any discussion of Long Shot, so that if anyone wants to pick it up, they won't be, inadvertently triggered.
Right.
So it's a survivor story. That's not a trope, but it's something that I always mention. It's a survivor story. It is right person, wrong time, because August and Iris, August is the hero, Iris is the heroine. They meet the night before the NCAA championship, the night before he's about to play in and win the basketball NCAA championship. And then he goes on to be drafted into the NBA. So it's a basketball story. That's another trope. It's a sports romance, obviously another trope. When I say right person, wrong time, she is actually, and they have this great conversation the night before the game. He doesn't realize that she is dating his rival.
Right.
So there is, the way basketball works now is they start with these like camps and leagues when they're like 12 years old. So these guys play together from the time they're like in middle school all the way up through the NBA. So they know each other. It's not a large, and that's the kind of thing. So he and this guy, Caleb, have known each other since they were kids, and he can't stand him. They can't stand each other. And so Iris is dating Caleb, and then she meets August, who's amazing. But she's obviously in a relationship, so she doesn't cheat on her boyfriend. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't, he wants to kiss her at the end of the night. And she's like, I can't kiss you. I'm in a relationship. So it's definitely right person, wrong time, basketball romance, sports romance. He falls first and really, really hard.
Yes.
Boy obsessed,
Yes.
and when I say boy obsessed, like it's kind of like A dark side of that coin is that her abuser is really obsessed with her, in a very unhealthy way, in a
Mhm.
very, we talk a lot about possessive alpha heroes in romance, but like that dark side of possessiveness, where
Exactly.
what it's kind of that classic abuser's profile where he's isolating her and he's looking to control her through finances, looking to control her through, reproductive abuse, all of those things. And then the
Exactly.
other side is August, who it's like boy obsessed, where from the time he meets her, he just feels this connection. They feel this connection to each other, and he
Mhm.
just can't shake that this is someone who should be in his life, even though everything's working against them.
Right.
So I think those single mom, she is a single mom, and so that's another trope. So I think those are kind of the big buckets for long shot. For
Mhm.
hook shot, and long shot is the heaviest of this series. A lot
Yes.
of times when people read long shot first, I call it a baptism by fire. When they read long shot first, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can read the other books because this was so heavy. Long
Right.
shot is definitely the heaviest book of this series.
Yeah.
It's the heaviest, most difficult book I've ever written. So it's definitely the heaviest one of this series. For me, it was like after I wrote Long Shot, I needed a little bit of a palate cleanser,
Mhm.
um, because it was such a difficult book to write. And then I wrote Block Shot, which is much lighter. It does have angst. It does have like emotional roller coaster. It's very intense. It does have. It's the spiciest. It is. It's a sports romance, but they're basketball agents. Um,
Mhm.
and I love Banner, who is Mexican American. Banner is first generation Mexican American. She's ambitious. She speaks all these languages. She's brilliant. And it's kind of enemies to lovers. It's a few
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
because they meet in college and they're friends, and they kind of like have their crush on each other really hard. They have a one night stand and then everything goes wrong, and then they both become agents, sports agents, and they're rivals. Like they work
Mhm.
at rival firms, and so they're kind of pitted against each other, like going after the same players to represent that kind of thing. But it comes a time when Jared and Banner are living in the same city again, and he's just like, Jared is probably one of the most alpha heroes I've ever written. He's very, some call him a little bit of
Yes.
a sociopath. He's very, they do. He's very possessive. He's very alpha.
Mhm.
He's very determined. And she is dating someone else, when they meet again, which is like 10 years later. And he really doesn't care. He's just
He
like,
does not.
he really doesn't. He's like, this is my person. We should have always been together. I'm sorry, sir, that you have gotten mixed into the middle of this, but you've got to go. She's
Exactly.
supposed to be with me. And so that is definitely the spiciest. Blockshot is the spiciest of the three books. And then Hookshot, for me, Hookshot is the most romantic. Like they're all romances, but Hookshot, I think of Hookshot, which is Lotus and Keenan, as like a courtship
Mhm.
story. You see them like eating ice cream on a date. You see them on a carousel in New York. You see them on the Brooklyn Bridge. You see them like falling and they exchange letters.
Mhm.
He's sending her snippets of the Song of Solomon every day. It's like you watch them fall in love. And so
Right.
for me, I think Hookshot is the most romantic. It is age gap.
Mhm.
But it's not illegal age gap.
Yeah.
She's younger than he is, but she's in her 20s. He's in his 30s. He's a veteran basketball player. He's a little older. She's a fashion designer. Um, it is um, it is strangers to friends to lovers.
Mhm.
It's a little bit of insta love for him because when I say insta love, we watch them over the course of the three books. Like they meet in the first book, and you get teases of what their relationship will be in the first book and the second book. And by the time we get to the third book, we know Keenan is like gone for her, and he
Yep.
feels this connection. So that's kind of their story. And yeah, so each book is kind of different, but
Mhm.
the themes that I think run through all three is like really strong, powerful women who
Yes.
overcome odds, and
Mhm.
men who support them, who are patient with them. Well, I don't know how patient Jared is, but I don't think Jared's patient at all, actually.
No.
But Keenan and August are patient. Jared is like a Mack truck, he
Exactly.
just steamrolls over everything, and he's in his quest to like have Banner for himself,
Right.
So, but all of the men respect the women and love them like wildly.
Yes, which I love. Reagan says, I loved Long Shot. It was so good.
Oh
It was genuinely, I still don't think I've ever read anything like it. It was
yeah.
amazing. Like I told you, I went into it completely blind, so I didn't know what I was getting into, but I'm so glad that I did. It's good because I'm not a person who has triggers,
Yeah.
but thankfully. But I
Yeah.
went into it blind and it actually changed my life. And then same with Blockshot, my anxiety during the whole like I would say first like maybe 25% with the whole I don't want to do any spoilers, but obviously what happens with that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Banner!" No, he did not, you know what I mean? So
Yes.
you just have such an amazing way with characters and stories, and I love that series with my whole entire chest,
Thank
and I'm
you.
super excited that they're all being re-released. Do you know
Yes.
the exact dates of Blockshot and Hookshot?
I do. I don't want to get them wrong, so I'm going to double check them here. It is okay. So Long Shot was August 8th. Block Shot is September 19th.
Okay.
And Hook Shot is October 10th.
Okay, guys, look
So
out for
they
it.
have all new covers. They all have new covers, and they also have bonus epilogues, which the
Oh,
original doesn't have. And it
okay.
also has an author Q&A, like an interview with me in each book. So I'm
Love that.
excited.
Super
Yeah.
excited. Those covers are so gorgeous. So I'm very excited to own all of them. Definitely check them out. Okay, so you kind of answered the next question in the first question when we talked about what it means to, re-release your books.
Yeah.
But just for the people who missed it or people who are just joining in, where will Longshot and the Hoop series be available with these re-releases?
I mean everywhere, so it's if you want to order online, you can order through Target, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, but you can also walk into Barnes and Noble, Target, Costco, Walmart, anywhere that sells books. And just like they wouldn't have every book imaginable, they may not have it, but
Mhm.
most of the time, they do. I've been really, really pleased at how how it's been stocked, that and the Kingmaker. And it's really cool now because we have the Kingmaker, the Rebel King, and Longshot all out. And they're starting to like put them all together, like in their own little section, which is really cool to
Mhm.
see all of them together, and soon Blockshot and Hookshot. But yeah, so I've seen the books in Costco, I've seen them all over. So wherever
Very
books are sold.
Yes. That's super great for anybody who likes to read, obviously.
Yeah,
The convenience of just walking to your store, your local whatever store, and being able to see them. Reagan has a
absolutely.
question. She says, "Ooh, do you here we go. Do you find yourself using your own experiences to contribute to your books? Also, if that's too personal, please don't feel like you have to answer."
Oh no, I think in some cases, like um I've never been in an abusive relationship, for example. I've never there are a lot of things that happen to my characters that I've never experienced. I think
Mhm.
there's a little bit of me in each character, especially in the women.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really fuels my books is curiosity, intellectual curiosity. I enjoy learning new things. My background is journalism, and the research aspect of writing is like my favorite part. I do a
Mhm.
lot of interviews. I usually have like a stack of books I'm reading for whatever I'm writing. And I'm, always doing lots of research. And part of that is just because I enjoy learning new things. So
Right.
I write a lot outside of my experience because I want to learn a lot of cool stuff, and I like for my readers to learn cool stuff. With that said, I think there are times when things that I have experienced make their way into my books for sure. We talked a little bit about Before I Let Go. The follow-up to Before I Let Go is coming March 5th, 2024,
I
which
did
is
not know
you
that.
did- oh yes, we just
Oh,
announced
it's so
like
exciting.
yeah, we'll be sharing, and the title is This Could Be Us. And
Okay.
it's Soledad's book. If you read Before I Let Go, Yasmin is the heroine. She has two best friends, Soledad and Hendrix. So Soledad's book is This Could Be Us, and it's coming out March 5th of 2024. And then Hendrix is the other best friend, and her book will be the following year. And so we haven't revealed the cover yet. We'll be revealing the cover soon. If you want to, if anybody wants to help me share the cover, I have a sign up in my bio, because we definitely want people to see the cover as much as possible. But anyway, Soledad's story, I'm really, really involved with the autism community. My son has autism. I've been an autism mom for 20 years. You know, I used to run a foundation. I started and ran a foundation for families who have children with autism for like 11 years. I still do Lift for Autism, which is a book auction to raise money for autism. So I'm like really embedded in, you know, autism activism, but I had never written autistic characters before. And speaking to this question for Soledad's book, there are autistic twins in the story, and really definitely pulling from my own experience as a special needs mom, but then talking to lots of, autism is such a huge spectrum as far as how it presents, and talking to lots of other parents and to actually autistic people and to therapists to get a fuller or the fullest representation that I could for it. So, and I think a lot of my husband and my story is in this story, you know, just in the sense that people who love each other and love their kids and encounter like something that's unexpected, that's challenging, and how you love each other through those things. So I think that's a good example of kind of my own experience making its way into one of the books that I write.
I love that. Especially Marriage in Trouble is, or I guess I don't know the exact term for that, like trope, but that's one of my favorite things to read. My parents are divorced. I have seen many relationships kind of fall apart, and in some cases they come back together, and then in some cases, most cases, they don't. And so that's just like one of my favorite tropes to read when it comes to romance books. And I really loved Before I Let Go because it just felt very, whether or not it totally related to your story or not, like I felt like I have read these characters before. I felt like it was very relatable. I felt like, you know, which is really, I feel like important to read, obviously, as a romance reader. So also, we have another comment. I'm so excited to meet her at Steamy Lit. That's so exciting. We were just talking about Steamy Lit. She's going, which is going to be so fun. I wish I had the wherewithal to just go to California. After Dallas, I'm like, nope.
I mean, I didn't do Book Bonanza because like obviously I mentioned I had a conflict. I had to go to Chicago for the American Library Association, but also it was too much to do all those things at once, you know? And I don't know that I would have done Book Bonanza and Steamy Lit in the same year, considering my current schedule and how aggressive my travel is right now. So I was really kind of saving up like energy for Steamy Lit, because the thing I love about Steamy Lit is that Melissa, who started it, she does the Steamy Lit boxes, and this is the Steamy Lit conference. She really looked around at a lot of the big signings and saw just that there was so little diversity. And she started from a place of diversity. Like those are the first authors she secured is Black and brown and marginalized authors. And then everybody's invited, but she made sure first that there was this, you know, representation. Because usually when I go to big signings, I may see one or two Black or brown authors and then everyone else is white, you know? And so I'm really excited about Steamy Lit because Melissa is really amplifying marginalized authors, and I am 100% behind that.
I love that. I didn't know that was where it, you know, she came from, which is really cool. So I'll make sure I'm there. I will be there next year if it happens again next year, but I'm planning.
It will be. They've already announced it for 2024.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Let me go ahead. I don't know if they started selling tickets yet, but I have only been to California once and I need to go back soon. So I'm very excited for that.
It's a good excuse.
Yes, purchase the new cover. So pretty. It is. All of the covers are new, so gorgeous. So I'm very excited to own all of them. Okay, next question. Do you have a favorite book in the Hoop series? If not a favorite, which is one that holds the most meaning to you?
I think Long Shot probably holds the most meaning in the
Mhm.
sense that I feel like it's probably one of, if not the most impactful book I've ever written. And when I talk about impact, I'm like, I write for impact. Like for me, that's a measure of success is how impactful is this book? How does it kind of move something in people's lives? How does it kind of land in their hearts and affect them? And I don't know that anything's ever been as impactful from that sense as Long Shot because Long Shot is a book I get DMs about from women survivors, women who are in abusive relationships who say, I got the courage to leave my abusive relationship after I read Long Shot, or, I was at a signing behind the pen. I was at a signing here in New York behind the pen on Saturday, and a lady came up to me crying, and which happens a lot, probably because my books make people cry a lot.
Yeah.
So when they see me, they cry. But she was crying, and she told me that she hadn't talked to her mom in like 10 years, and that she had grown up in an abusive situation. And she had always thought of her mother as a victim. And it wasn't until she read Long Shot that she thought of her mother as a survivor. And after she read Long Shot, I know, after
Yeah.
she read Long Shot, she called her, and they hadn't spoken in like 10 years. And she was like, it transformed my relationship with my mom, And so I get messages like that about other books, but there's something about that level of impact, knowing that something you wrote that's fictional has that kind of like real life impact that
Yes.
you just can't, you can't beat it.
Yes.
And I see some of that with Before I Let Go too, like lots of people who start therapy after Before I Let Go, who start marriage counseling after Before I Let Go, who talk about, navigating grief. So I think Before I Let Go will probably be a close second, but definitely within the Hoop series, I would say Long Shot. Well, and just, Long Shot made history, winning awards that no Black author had ever won before. So um, that's special. It has kind of its own special place because of the place it holds in the genre, as far as like the history for the genre. It has a lot of meaning for me in that aspect too.
Hmm. That's interesting. And
Mm.
also, I was about to sob and I was like, you are alive right now. Let's pull this together because I feel like it's just so, especially when you're in a parent relationship, I feel like you never really look at your parents and be like, oh, maybe they're a survivor of this. You kind of look at them and be like, oh, why wouldn't they leave? They made my life and their lives miserable because they weren't strong enough to leave. But really, when you think back, and especially your books and many books in the romance genre have made me realize like just different things about my life and other people's lives. And it's amazing. And I love that you have that impact on readers. And that's just truly amazing. Reagan said that makes me sob. Same. I was about to lose it. I pulled it in, and books are so powerful. Yes, they are. It's insane. Okay. Next one we have is I'm wanting to read Kennedy Ryan for the first time. Where would you recommend I start?
I would say most people start one of two places. Like, I think Long Shot is probably my most popular kind of like TikTok book, So a lot of people find Long Shot through TikTok and they start there. And again, that's kind of a baptism by fire, because they think, oh my gosh, all of Kennedy's books are this, hard or this tough. So I don't usually recommend people start with Long Shot. It's kind of like the book I let them work up to. I recommend starting with something like Before I Let Go or Real. And the reason I say those is because they're standalones, it's not part of a series. You don't have to, it's not a trilogy. Like my Grip trilogy is 3 books, 1 couple,
Yeah.
you read one, and it's like if in the if you put them all together, it's like 800 pages, and it's like a commitment, to this one couple for 800 pages or whatever. And Real is a standalone. Before I Let Go is a standalone. And I think it's just and I also think it's a good example of what I do as a writer.
Mhm.
And kind of the approach I take to romance.
Mhm.
And then if you read Before I Let Go, a lot of people say what I read after Before I Let Go, because I think that's probably another really popular title of mine. I always say Real, always say Real. And if you've gotten through Before I Let Go and you've gotten through Real, let's try Long Shot. Let's dive
Oh,
in, with the caveat of the content warnings.
yes. It's interesting that you would say Before I Let Go before Long Shot, because Before I Let Go, I read that when it came out. No, actually, I read it in February of this year. And I was like, did it come out in February?
It came out in November of
Wow. Okay.
2022. Yeah.
That was delayed. I got it for Christmas. That's
Uh-huh.
and I was like, oh, like I've never felt that way when I read a book where I was genuinely, I think I had plans later the night that I started reading it. And I was like, I think I need to cancel. Like, I'm not okay right now. Like, I genuinely, it hurt me so badly, but it was so good
Mhm.
and so insightful and just amazing. So it's really interesting that you would say, like, Before I Let Go, before Long Shot, but obviously it depends on readers,
Yes.
content
And
warnings and all.
I think something can be really emotional, but not as deeply rooted in a traumatic experience. Before I Let Go is also has a traumatic experience
Yeah.
connected to it, but
Mhm.
it's not violent,
Mhm.
And so I think with the domestic abuse, that's where I'm always like I'm very careful with anything that has content warnings, but especially
Right.
with Long Shot, I'm always very careful about someone being triggered that way. And
Exactly.
it's so funny because when I wrote Before I Let Go, I thought no one's going to cry over this book. Like I didn't think it was. No, I'm serious. I didn't think it was a book that would make people cry. I remember
Um,
telling my best friend right before she read it, I was like, "You're not going to cry. It's not an emotional book." That
mm,
emotional. And she was like, "Oh, okay." And she read it and she's sending me text messages. She's like, "What are you talking about? I was sobbing in the first like 20%."
oh my
I'm
god.
like, "You were?" And I realized that I'm not a good gauge. Like I'm not a good gauge of what makes people emotional and cry and
Right.
to cry.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, maybe not because you write so many, impactful books, but that's so funny. You're like, "I'll read Before I Let Go."
Oh yeah, I'm like that one won't make you cry as much.
Oh
And when
my
people
god.
ask me about Soledad's book, I'm like, I don't think it's gonna make people cry. I think it has a lot more humor than most of my books. And so I'm always
Okay.
like, gosh, she said that about Before I Let Go too.
See, now I'm like on pins and needles, walking on eggshells. I'm not sure, but I feel like if you're saying it will make me laugh, then we
It
might be good.
definitely has more humor, I think,
Okay.
than most of my books because my books are usually not. They have like moments of humor, but I don't know that I could ever write a true rom-com. Like I can't
Mhm.
sustain that level of amusement for an entire book. But I definitely know that Soledad's story is funnier.
Mm.
My editor was like, Kennedy, I'm laughing. I'm like, I know. She's like, I don't know what this is right now. I'm laughing during one of your books.
Well,
Um,
Soledad was hilarious during like Before I Let Go, so I don't expect
she
anything
is
less.
she is a
But there's
character. Like she
yeah,
is, I love her, and she's not afraid to be a little goofy, like she's not afraid to be kind of like, okay, I don't take myself too seriously. Especially,
exactly.
she has three girls. If you remember from Before I Let Go, she has three daughters.
Mhm.
And just building out and creating their relationship was a very special process for me. And I can't wait for people to see like her full story. You get glimpses of her through Before I Let Go, but she's like the main attraction in This Could Be Us. And I
Mhm.
think This Could Be Us is a little spicier than Before I Let Go,
Okay, that's
Yeah,
exciting. I
that's
love
a
I love
little
that.
spicier.
We have another question. What's one topic you would love to write about in the future?
Um, well, I'm probably thinking about the book that I'm about to write. I'm always thinking about whatever I'm writing next. And
Mhm.
I'm writing Hendrix's book next. And Hendrix's mom has a form of dementia.
Okay.
And I know that doesn't seem like something that would be fun to write about, but it's not the fun part. I think, like, I know there are a lot of people in my family and in my extended family who are dealing with that or grappling with that. My grandmother, my husband's aunt, my best friend's father. Like, it seems
Wow.
like there's so many people who are dealing with that now.
Mhm.
And it goes back to the curiosity for me, like really digging into it and figuring out how it kind of affects the emotional arc of that book and of their relationship.
Mhm.
So I'm looking forward to writing that. But I also really, again, I never am talking about the fun things that I want to write. I really have wanted to write for a long time. It just has to be the right book and the right situation. I really wanted to write about, I know this is not fun, so don't even think that I do think it's fun, but unlawful imprisonment.
Yeah.
um, I'm fascinated by our broken legal system, and I've
Yes.
really wanted to, and just how common unlawful in the right situation, I will, write that book. But that's something that
I will
keeps
be
like
avoiding that
pulling on
one.
me.
I said I will
You
be
said
avoiding
what?
that one. I will be avoiding that one.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I always think that, but then whenever you write a book, I'm like, okay, well, I have to. But that's definitely a topic that I'm also very interested in, and it pulls
Yeah.
on my well-being. So, but that's very
Yeah.
interesting.
I mean, it's distressing, how
It,
common it is. And when you
yeah,
hear stories about people who literally lose 20, 25 years of their lives and
I don't
they're
understand.
wrongfully imprisoned. And I don't know how that will fit into the story or which character that will be, but it is something that I think about a lot. If anyone has read the Grip trilogy, that book
Mhm,
has mass incarceration. There's a discussion about mass incarceration and
mhm.
about police brutality. Like, I'm interested in broken systems and how they affect relationships.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes. Dementia. I can relate to that. My grandfather, sorry. And then also those yeah, the Central Park 6. Is it 5 or
Yeah.
6? Central Park
I
5.
Central Park 5.
I'm not sure.
Uh I just
That
went I used to know, and then I just went blank when you questioned it.
yeah, was it I don't know, but that has definitely
The
opened the
Ava
conversation
DuVernay special, like yeah, When They See Us was
when they see us. Oh my gosh, I've tried to rewatch it since, and I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I about to
yeah.
rewatch this? Like, it's
I
one of those
watched it
things.
once. That was good. Yeah, I watched it
It was
once.
enough, honestly. Once is enough. And honestly, I'd be very interested in seeing if you were to write from, a hero's perspective or anyone's perspective from that standpoint. But it would definitely be hard. It makes me like wonder, like you are very bold within you're bold
That's one
with
way of putting it.
you're very like I feel like you're really fearless when it comes to writing. Maybe I'm wrong, and obviously I don't know what's going on within your head, but I feel like sometimes I would be kind of fearful of writing like different
Yeah.
perspectives, whether or not you experienced it or whether or not you haven't. And obviously everyone's experience is different. So I'm wondering, does that ever like kind of not worry you, but do you ever like
Mhm.
kind of question if you're writing a story like accurately, or like what is that process like for you?
Yeah, I mean, as far from an accuracy standpoint, I'm very, very vigilant. I do a lot of research and I do a lot of interviews. Like, it's nothing for me to conduct 20 interviews for a book.
Mhm.
And I do those by Zoom so that I can focus on the conversation. And then once I'm done, I'm taking notes. And then
Mhm.
usually from that pool of people I interview, I recruit, I ask several of them to be sensitivity readers to
Mhm.
help ensure accuracy. That's to protect the story. That's also I talk about writing Hippocratically. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is, you know, the Hippocratic oath is for doctors is first do no harm. And for me as a writer, that's my first rule is do no harm. And in the
Mhm.
process of not doing harm, there is a very methodical way I go about that, which includes interviews, research, supplemental reading, and sensitivity readers compensating sensitivity readers.
Mhm.
To make sure of people who have actually experienced those things. You can't ever be guaranteed that you get everything right, but when
Right.
you are as vigilant as I am about it, and when you get as big of a cross section of people and experiences to inform that text as I try to do, it's a real security blanket. And I mean, anybody can get anything wrong, but I'm pretty vigilant about it. And when you say fearless, I mean, I think that, you know, when I decided to write Long Shot, I recognized that it was something that I didn't see. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't seeing people do this every day, you
Right.
know, and in romance specifically. For me, it's not usually that I'm not scared to write it because you're right. I do kind of write outside of a lot of the things that we see a lot in romance. Um,
Exactly.
but I'm drawn to difficult things. You know, I'm drawn to hard conversations. But the reason I do that is, and some people are like, but romance is supposed to be happy. You know, like I think it's how people think about romance because some people approach romance as pure escapism. And I
Mhm.
don't approach romance that way. I approach romance as guaranteed joy. You know,
Mhm.
like I do know that there's going to be happily ever after. And for me, that is the safest landscape to have difficult conversations because what
Right.
better place to have difficult conversations than an environment where you know everything's going to turn out okay. And so
Exactly.
philosophically, that's how I approach romance. Not that it's an escape from reality, but it's a safe place to deal with reality. It's a safe place to
Exactly.
have discourse on reality because there's a
Mhm.
guaranteed happily ever after.
Mm. That's really important. And I love the way that you view romance, obviously,
Mhm.
because a lot of authors would shy away from difficult because romance is supposed to be happy and,
Yes.
sunshine, and whatever.
And there,
But
you know, and there's like, I applaud that. You know, like I think I'm glad there's cozy romance. You know, I'm glad there's soft romance. I'm glad there's all of these different things and that everybody wants to write something different. What I'm writing is very specific.
Mhm.
And I'm glad that it has its place too. So when you're not in the mood for something heavy, go read cozy, go read soft. But when you are in the mood for something that is gonna confront, that's going to challenge, that might, you know, challenge you, challenge your views, but at the
Exactly.
same time have some swoon, you know, and a happily ever after, I'm your girl. You know.
I love that. I watched it once and it was enough. I definitely agree. I've tried to rewatch When They See Us.
Mm.
Never again. I genuinely can't. I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway.
especially the last one. Yeah, the
Oh
last
my
one.
gosh, there's so many just like aspects to that show. Ugh, I can't even get into it. Ooh, I would love that. A man getting out of prison and finds love. I feel like that would be a pretty interesting story as well. You know,
And I don't know if it would be the hero. I don't know if it would be his brother, his dad. I don't know who it would be, but I
yeah,
just know it would have a place in the story. It could be a lawyer, you know, that's one aspect, that
a
like a lawyer
probation.
representing someone. Yeah, I don't know, but I do know that it's something that I usually write things that I want to shine light on. You know, I usually write things that are important to me.
Yeah.
And so that's something that always is like at the back of my mind. And I keep
Yes.
wondering, how am I going to write about this? And it's a
Very
romance, you know.
interesting. I feel like I'm watching a TED Talk right now. I love that. I love that. Do you consult with actual specialists for your novels?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, when you talk about something like Before I Let Go, I interview therapists because there's so much on-page therapy.
Mhm.
I interviewed several therapists and then actually hired, you know, because I compensate sensitivity readers. I asked a few of them to be sensitivity readers for Before I Let Go. With Long Shot, obviously I interviewed survivors, but I also had conversations with social workers and with shelter workers, like people who work in shelters, and actually asked them to also, recruited some of them to read the books. Every book, and you talk about something like The Kingmaker and the Rebel King, obviously, which is an Indigenous heroine, obviously interviewed a huge cross-section of Indigenous women for that book, use them as sensitivity readers as well. It's just anything I am writing, especially something that goes beyond my lived experience, just assume that I am interviewing experts and that I am compensating them to be my sensitivity readers, because that's my process. It's part of why it takes me so long to write books too, is because that's what it takes for me to write a book. And it usually takes about 7 to 8 months. So it is what it is.
That was actually my mom. And then the aunt that I was talking about earlier, where I was like, oh, read Before I Let Go. I think the audiobook is out. Like, yeah, she asked this. I'm sorry I'm late to the show, but is there going to be a sequel to Before I Let Go? This was so good, and I would love to see their story continue.
Well, and when you say sequel, there is a follow-up. There's a book too, and the series is called Skyland, because as you may remember, the community they live in is called Skyland. So the series is called Skyland. Before I Let Go is book 1. I just announced last week that Soledad is getting her book in March, just called This Could Be Us. So it's not a sequel in the sense that it continues Yasmin and Josiah's story, but Yasmin and Josiah are definitely in book 2. We see them living their best life, happy, thriving. They are, in Soledad's book. And then Hendrix's book will be the following year. And we'll see Soledad, and we'll see Yasmin, and we'll see Josiah in Hendrix's book. Deja, who everybody at some point usually wants to wring Deja's neck, who's right before I go. She'll be in there, she'll be in there. So, so I'm really, really excited about this next phase in the series. And I love Soledad's story. So I hope everybody will.
Yes. That's honestly the most exciting part about like companion novel series. I love checking in on like characters that we've read previously.
Yes,
yes, the characters are back again. Yes, you will see them again.
Yes. I assume everyone knows. I always assume that everyone knows that Before I Let Go is being developed for television. I don't know. Yes. So we'll see more of them on screen, and
so
yes. So I'm very excited about that.
Go ahead and we have that question, but I'll jump ahead. So Before I Let Go is being adapted on Peacock, right?
Yes, it is. Okay. And of course, the WGA and SAG are striking right now, so Hollywood is really at a standstill, which says something. You can't do anything without writers. And so we're kind of at a standstill on that. But the producers, I'm so excited about them. I don't know if people know who the producers are. John Legend and his team, they're one of the producers. If you've ever watched the Best Man movies, like Best Man Holiday, Best Man, that whole franchise, Best Man, the final chapters, that whole franchise. Malcolm D. Lee is the director for those movies. He's also one of the producers. And then Deborah Martin Chase, who is a living icon. She literally discovered Blake Lively, discovered Anne Hathaway, did the Princess Diaries, she's amazing. And she's fantastic. And now she has plays on Broadway. So to have the 3 of them coalesce around this content is surreal. Like when I could have stopped at John Legend and it would have been surreal. But the fact that it's all 3 of them producing that, and I am an executive producer on the project, so readers are always really concerned about making sure that like the writer is somehow involved and not just passing the book on, like, let me know how it goes. I'm definitely involved in everything, which is great.
Congratulations. I'm so excited to see that out on the big screen. There's other books that are being adapted as well, right? Long shot. Is it the Hoop series or the
The Hoop
Kingmakers?
series and the Kingmaker, like all the King's Men, which is the Kingmaker, the Rebel King, and Queen move, had all been optioned. But
Mhm.
options have time limits. And after usually
Mhm.
about 18 months to 2 years, you decide if you're going to continue. And I decided not to continue with that option, with that particular company.
Okay.
And I mean, there are things that are developing for those books, but I will wait. I will wait to talk about them
Okay.
later once we have announcements for them. But needless to say, there are definitely things in the works for the Hoop series that
Okay.
I'm very excited to share when the time is right.
Okay. Sounds good.
Mhm.
Um, Not my mom. Yeah, but Best Man series. Okay. My introduction to your writing was Grip Story. Looking forward to reading more. Yes,
Yeah,
please. Her books are amazing. And honestly, I feel like there's just a story for everyone out there when it comes to your writing. Like, I
thank
love
you.
all the stories that I've read by you. And I'm excited to see you, gain popularity more and more. And your
Thank
books
you.
are becoming adapted. It's very exciting. Okay. Next question that we have is, what does your writing process look like? Are you a planner? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I think I alluded to some of it already because so much of my process is research, and interviews. And I am not someone who goes into a book with an outline.
Mm,
Um, I go into a book with an idea about what I want to talk about. And I draft my interview list, who are the people who can help me understand this topic. And I have a loose kind of like outline of who the characters are, but it really
mhm,
doesn't crystallize until I'm doing my interviews and my research and I'm reading my books. Then those characters and the storyline starts to come together. So I'm not a pantser,
mhm.
someone who's just like, oh, let's sit down and see where this story goes. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I am just I'm not someone who goes into the book with the outline. I really have to find the story. And that's through my creative process of like interviewing and research and reading. And then once I've done all of that, then I draft like a basic outline.
Okay.
And then I start writing. And, for me, music is such a huge part of my process. I won't have any words written. I'll have 50 songs on the playlist. It's really huge. If anyone has ever read Queen Move, which is it's the third book in the All the King's Men series. The first two go together, they're a duology, and then the third book is like the best friend. It's called Queen Move. There is
Mhm.
a scene with the trampoline. If anyone has read it, there's a scene where there's some sensual shenanigans on the trampoline. And literally that whole scene came out of me listening to Zayn's song Trampoline. And I
Mm,
just was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna put this on the playlist. And it just inspired me to write this whole like scene where they have their first kind of like encounter on a trampoline in the backyard. So music is a big part of my inspiration too.
okay, that's interesting because we also have that question if you like make a playlist throughout your writing
Mhm.
process or, so that's really interesting. I love asking authors that question because it's so I just interviewed Julianne the other day and she was telling me how she does not plan anything. The story just comes to her. She's a big
Yeah.
daydreamer. And then other people I've interviewed, also BB Reed, and she was like, I have out their zodiac signs. I have everything about these characters and the plot. So it's really cool how everybody does it.
Yeah.
Um, I thought about this with your writing today. If you dropped an outline, yes.
After
Um,
research. Yeah, after
yeah.
research. And I don't usually the things that I'm writing about, you can't just sit down and write. Like you have to learn them. You have to learn a lot before you write it. So you can't just sit down and kind of write by the seat of your pants because you don't have
Mhm.
anything to say yet. Unless
Right.
you were an expert in that area already. So
Woo just finished Queen Move. Yes to the trampoline. I have not read the Kingsman series, all the Kingsmen
all the
series.
Kingsmen, yes.
Yes,
Yes,
but
to the trampoline. I hope that I don't know which version you read of Queen Move, but there's a bonus epilogue. And so I hope that you have a version that has the bonus epilogue. If not, check like the link in my bio and get it emailed to you for free because I write bonus epilogues for just about everything. And Queen Move is one of my favorite bonus epilogues.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
I pictured Jesse Williams. Why did I also picture Jesse Williams as Josiah? Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
You know what? I mean, I've seen a lot of lists and people have put him on the list. I used to like there was a point where I would talk about casting, like dream casting, but I don't really do it anymore because it's real now. Like we actually have to cast someone. And so I don't want it to be that I was like, "Ooh, my ideal Josiah is this person," and then we actually cast someone else. So I don't really do dream casting very much, but he definitely has been on a lot of lists. Readers send me cast weekly. Like I get cast lists from readers all the time, DMs, tweets. Yahya Abdul, I can't think of his last name right now, but he's tall and he was in Candyman, like the new Candyman. He's somebody who's people send to me a lot. There's several guys who come up over and over and over, and several women who come up over and over and over. So I hear you.
I also would say Jesse Williams for the hero in Long Shots, but I don't know.
I can see that.
Miss Ryan's characters have death, child. Even the ones we just like, they just hit us deep. Honestly, yes. Even with the daughter and Before I Let Go, I was like wanting to rip out my hair, and I was like, why is she me growing up? She was me growing up, and I was like, I dislike her so much. And then I took a minute, I was like, I had to ask, I was like, Mom, she was me.
Was this me?
Yes, exactly. Josiah is my man, and I will fight Yasmin for him. Yes.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well for Vashtai.
She pissed me off too. I was also like, could she get a book potentially? Any plans?
No. I'm not gonna write a book. I do get questions about, book for Vashtai. I'm not gonna write a book for Vashtai. I think we don't really see her very much in Soledad's story. She moves to Charlotte. Well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but she kind of has her own path. And we see a little bit of her in Hendrix's story so that everybody knows she's okay. Not that most readers care if she's okay, because she's, for most people, a character they just wanted out of the picture, because we know the two people who are supposed to be together, and we just want anybody who's there who's not supposed to be out. Yeah, so
yeah, I definitely see that. And while I was reading it, I definitely was like, get her off of my pages. But I also felt some type of, like empathy, and like I was sympathetic because I've definitely been there. Well, not to that extent, but I've been there where I've liked a guy and, whatever the case may be. But yes, anyways. So you answered, do you use music / create playlists? How hard was it writing Long Shot? What was the driving factor to writing such a heartbreaking book?
I think I mentioned this before. Like, Long Shot is the hardest book I've ever written. So it was very difficult to write Long Shot. For me, the driving force was seeing women, particularly women who had abusive situations with professional athletes, and hearing the cultural discourse about them being maybe gold diggers, that's the only reason they would stay, and seeing the level of privilege that professional athletes had, as far as not being held accountable, and just the cultural discourse around domestic abuse, and in the context of professional sports, was a driving force for me. And then also, I mean, you don't have to be a professional athlete. And this is one thing that I kind of reference in Long Shot. Even if you're not rich and powerful, a rich and powerful man like a professional athlete, there are men who are not rich or powerful who have power inherently because of patriarchy. And in these situations, even if they're not professional athletes, they are still given privilege through our legal system that they shouldn't have, because of their paternal right,
Yeah. I love that answer. Okay, we are almost coming up on the hour, so we just have a couple more questions. What is one of the hardest parts of writing romance?
Um, I think writing.
Mhm.
For me, like writing, I know some people are like, oh my gosh, I just couldn't stop writing. Oh my gosh, it just flows right out of me. Writing is hard for me, Um, the research part, the ideas, the interviews, reading, like that's all fun.
Mhm.
Writing itself is hard for me, and a lot of people seem surprised when I say that. But it's like that flashing cursor translating what has been like a daydream, what has been vibes, what has been maybe tropes or whatever into an actual compelling story.
Mhm.
That's the hardest part for me. And I'm really hard on myself because I'm a very picky reader.
Mm.
uh I'm very fastidious. I don't read everything. A lot of things that people love, I'm just like, I don't get it. A lot of things that are really popular are to me unreadable. So I'm just
Mhm.
like, I don't understand what this is that, people like. And I'm such a picky reader, and it makes me a very picky writer. And when I say
Mm.
picky writer, I don't like recycled language. Like, I don't like there are certain phrases that I think, even in romance, sometimes we see over and over again. It's like you could
Mhm.
almost write the next sentence because this is something that you are used to seeing in romance.
Exactly.
I don't like that. I don't
Mm.
like triteness. I don't like to rehash phrases. I like for language to be fresh.
Mhm.
And for me, that when that's not happening, I just sit there and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just terrible. So I have to get past that, get past
Right.
myself, just get it down and then make it better. And I'm
Mhm.
such a perfectionist when it comes to stuff like that, that makes it hard. Um, but I think for me, because of what I do, the particular thing that I write, sometimes the biggest challenge is balancing all these like things that I want to talk about and making sure that it's still actually romantic. Like I want to talk about domestic abuse. I want to talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women. I want to talk about the Crown Act and discrimination with, Black women's hair. But also, this book needs to be super swoony and
Yeah.
romantic. And so I think that's one of the big challenges for me in particular. And what I do is making sure there's a balance of me wanting to have these discussions about things that are important, but also remembering that it's supposed to be swoony and entertaining and, a love story. And so I have to be
Exactly.
really careful to make sure that's all there.
Mhm. Well, I applaud you because I feel like it's a very hard task for people to do. Sometimes I feel like it's too much romance and not enough what the author wants it to come across. And sometimes it's,
Right.
the opposite. But I've always felt like I've gotten all the feels and all like felt very swoony and also got a pretty strong message as well. So that's really amazing
Good.
that you have that ability to do so. Um, the Resistance Book Club, we actually did go ahead and answer this question earlier. I think Kennedy said Before I Let Go or Real as standalone. So you,
Yeah, I think those are good places to start is Before I Let Go or Real. I said earlier that I think most people find my books through the Hoop series. So a lot of people start with Long Shot, and I think that's great. As
mhm,
long as you're prepared that Long Shot is very difficult. It's the hardest book in my entire backlist. It deals
mhm,
graphically with domestic abuse. As
mhm.
long as you know that going in, I think the Hoop series is a great place to start. I just don't like for people to stumble into it blindly.
Right. I agree. I will say Long Shot was my introduction to you. I'm still here, so. And then we have what got you into writing in the first place?
Oh, I've been writing for a very long time. I first started writing poetry. I mean,
Oh,
12, 11, 13, writing poetry. And
mhm,
by the time I was 17, I was writing for a newspaper, like um, and then I went to journalism school, and so I've been writing professionally literally since before I could vote, so, but I've only been writing fiction for the last 10 years. And
okay.
so published my first fiction novels 10 years ago. So as far as what got me into writing, I've been writing that long, and I've always just known that I was going to be a writer. I love
Mhm,
language. language. You know, my dad used to come home. My dad was a dean of students, a chancellor for universities, very bright man, you know, and he would come home and we would go through the dictionary. You know, we would literally, he would quiz me on sections of the dictionary. And that's
Mm,
part of what, like, and he would tell me, if you're reading a book, every time you come to a word you don't know, write it down and then
mhm.
use it in a sentence before the week is out. You know, like I grew up in a space that encouraged thought, you know, and that encouraged critical thinking and that encouraged creativity and that encouraged reading. So when you are living in a house where that's kind of the standard, when
Mhm.
your dad is quizzing you on the letter G when he comes home from the dictionary, you know, you just, for me, I just, it nurtured my love of language. And so I would say my dad was a really big influence on me, and my mom as a reader was a really big influence on me. So
Wow.
as far as thinking that writing was something I should give my life to.
Wow. I love that. Is writing your full-time job, by the way? I
Yeah,
never.
it is
Okay.
now. Yeah, I mean, I have been like I said, my degree is journalism. And so
Right.
I was doing PR like for a long time, public relations, ghost writing, writing for like nonprofits, churches, you know, philanthropic organizations,
Mhm.
all of that. And then for about 11 years, I ran a foundation for families who have children with autism. And then
Mm.
when I started writing, it just got to be a lot to do both those things. And so I transitioned out of running the foundation and I write full time. And then I do Lift for Autism every year, which is kind of
Wow.
how I still stay connected to autism philanthropy.
Okay.
Mhm.
PR is my major, so it's really
Oh,
interesting to
cool.
hear. And yeah, we are an hour and 5 minutes into this live. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Is there anything at all that you want to share or talk about before we end that I haven't asked you already? Or
No, no, just for everybody to be on the lookout for Block Shot and Hook Shot. You know, they're coming in the next month and then 2 months.
yeah,
And I'm really excited. And all three of them have the bonus epilogues. All three of them, the new print editions, also have author Q&As. So that's really a really cool bonus thing for the new print covers. So thank you so much for having me.
of course, this was so much fun. Thank you all for watching so much. Please check out Kennedy. I love her work. And Longshot was my introduction. So it's very like a full circle moment to be talking about the re-release. So make sure to check it out. It's out now. And then along with Blockshot and Hookshot, they are coming out very soon as well. Before I Let Go is a favorite of mine and along with Real. So please make sure to do that. And then also, I believe I have Kennedy's Instagram linked in the description below. So make sure to give her a follow as well. So thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank
Bye.
you for having me. Bye.
Bye. Okay, it's ending.